Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, take it to the next level and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, you can get this show anywhere you listen to your podcasts. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, we invite you to leave a rate and review. Otherwise, please send us some feedback at road to rediscovery podcast at gmail.com. That's road to rediscovery podcast at gmail.com, and we'll give you a shout out in a future episode. Now, as you know, in previous times on this show, we've always said things like everyone has a story to tell, right? And it's so true. People tell their stories in different ways through blogs, art, music, diaries, and of course, through books. How many of you have reflected on some past life experiences and really thought to yourself, wow, I should write a book? It's happened to me numerous times. So, as there are different ways, there's also different reasons that people want to tell their stories. My special guest is a book coach and a publisher with over 3 decades of expertise in her field. Using her inspirational and empowering methods, she helps guide her clients through the seemingly complex process of book writing and getting published. But furthermore, her process leaves you with so much more than a completed book. We're going to talk about that and more. Please help me welcome Sue Kennedy to the show. Hello, Sue. It's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Aubrey, so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, likewise. It's our pleasure as well. We're honored to have you here. So, Sue, some people are just natural at things, right? So I guess there are natural born writers that you can kind of determine or observe children since childhood. Has writing come natural to you early on?
No, I always wanted to be a writer,
Hmm.
but I never thought I was good enough, of course. And of course, I had teachers that said so as well. And I thought,
Mm.
interesting. Well, let's change that viewpoint and prove this teacher wrong. So I did. But I actually went through something quite traumatic and have done so, moving forward as well. But I always come back to the processes that help me get through it, which is to write a book and also my art. So I
Hmm.
combine the two to create my program to help others do the same.
Hmm.
So, yeah, going through difficult periods, and as you say, people deal with it in different ways. But when I did it, I thought, I wanted to know for myself why I was going through what I was going through, which was a really, bad bout of depression to the
Hmm.
point that I considered suicide. So, I thought, well, I need to research this. And then I thought, well, I should actually put this into a book and then help others as well, because there
Yeah.
would be many people that, would be feeling the same way as me. And of course, back then when I did it, there were no people like me, book
Hmm.
coaches. So I had to sort of figure it out all by myself, and it was a lot more difficult then to do it as well.
Hmm.
So, along the way, of course, I've learnt, great little ways of doing it that fast track it a bit more than the way I did it originally.
Hmm.
And of course, I've now also an art therapist as well, so I bring that into it as well to also, I mean, the writing side of it is a healing aspect, but so is the art side. So, yeah, I'm
Yes.
very excited about, sharing it with people and helping them heal.
Oh, fantastic. And I tell you, I mean, this is the true essence of the show. Thank you for sharing that so much, Sue, because there was something that I read on your website that really resonated with me, and I believe you shared this as your inspiration. And I'm paraphrasing here, but you mentioned, as I unpacked my journey, I realized that it was time to share my success and guide others to find their soul language, right?
Mm.
At some point, it just sounds like it just clicked in your mind, like almost like a compulsion, like you felt compelled and drawn into this direction to share what you've learned on your journey with others for the benefit of helping them.
Oh, exactly, because I know what it's done for me
Hmm.
and you know, how it helped me get through it all.
Hmm.
And then when I've gone through other traumatic experiences, because sadly we don't usually just have one,
Yeah.
uh, most of us anyway. So,
Hmm.
I've been able to then grab that and use it again to guide me through because I know that that's what's going to help me
Yeah.
move forward. So yeah, it's and you mentioned at the start that people think that they can't write. Well, if you can actually speak, then you can write
Hmm. Hmm.
because there's great editors out there that can
Yeah.
massage it to make it sound absolutely amazing. But
Hmm.
I do love people using their own voice because it's their story. And people wanna hear other people's stories, not someone else that has written it for them, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. I mean, and I'm using this term loosely. Since I'm not in the field, I'm not as familiar, but I've heard the term ghostwriter, you
Mhm.
know,
Yes.
and I guess there are ghost writers out there, but the whole key to what you do and how you help others is helping people tell their true, authentic story to be the best representation of themselves in their narrative.
Exactly, 100%. And by also doing that, you're by sharing your story with others, there's
Hmm.
other people going through it.
Yes.
You're not the only one, which a lot of people think that they are, that no one
Hmm.
else is going through this, so no one would understand. Well, they are going through it and they will understand, and perhaps they're at a point where, you're sort of 1 or 2 steps ahead, and
Yeah.
your story is going to resonate with them and actually help them, which
Yes.
I think is the powerful part about the whole process is that,
Hmm.
that and that's what made me get very excited knowing that if I've just helped one person,
Yes.
then, I've made a difference, and I that made me feel very happy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because that's like a pebble in the water, right? You help one person exponentially as life goes on, they're transformed and they're helping others and so forth. And it progresses and progresses and progresses. And I've said this, my listeners have heard me say this like a broken record, but I find that it sounds and it rings so true. There are two inherent things that I believe our great maker above has given us inherently. Okay. The first is the feeling for community. Okay. And it's inherent in us to connect with people, look, touch, feel, talk. Okay. The human interaction. No one lives on an island, right? And then number two is the desire to help others, to give. That's inherent in all of us, I believe, that our great maker has instilled in us, quite honestly,
Yeah,
and so in you sharing how you get excited about the process and how it helps others. And I can only imagine just some of the transformations or the aha moments that you've had with your clients in working with them and going through the process of writing the book, sharing their story and so forth. And you see them change kind of into a different person, almost with a new lease on life. Can you explain that a little bit, Sue?
definitely. Look, I had one as an example, one client that
Hmm.
she'd been writing. I met her. I was actually teaching creative writing at a college nearby, and
Mhm.
she was in the class,
Mhm.
and I was going around, getting everyone to introduce themselves anyway,
Yeah.
and she sort of started telling her story, but she didn't wanna share too much. She was very private and a bit
Yeah.
shy about it all,
Mhm.
and but she sort of opened up a little bit, and I said to her, "How long have you been writing this book?" She said, "Oh, about 30 years. I've been trying to get it finished." And I went,
Mhm.
"Okay."
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, and at the end of it, I even went, "Who was that?" Like, my mouth opened and this voice came out. I mean, it was mine, of course, but
Right.
and it was like, "You need to get this book finished, and you really
Mhm.
need to do it now. It's
Yes.
time." And I'm like, "Okay." I then found, I then when I sort of went back in, I know this might sound a bit woo-woo to people, but I believe in this,
Mhm.
and it was her daughter, because the book was about her daughter that she had
Oh,
lost,
I see.
and it was her daughter saying, "Please, just tell her to get it done because she needs to pass it and move on with her life because she'd been hanging
Yes.
on to it for so long."
Yes.
And so she came up to me after class and said, "Do you actually do one-to-one coaching?" I said, "I do." She said, "Great, let's book a time."
Mm,
And so we did, and then we had a few sessions, of course, after that, and we got the book finished and
good.
published.
Good.
So, and her beautiful daughter had passed because she actually had cerebral palsy, her daughter.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
it was, yeah, it was quite, a challenging time for her and her
Mhm.
husband.
Mhm.
And but I said to her, like, "This book is gonna help so many other people that have
Yes.
got children with cerebral palsy," and
Yes.
of course it has helped people, because a lot of people have said to her, "Thank you for sharing your story. It's
Mhm.
really been a great help to our family." So, and she was able to then move on from that. She felt
Yes.
like she had, like, healed and been able to shut off that part of her life. I mean, of course, she'll never forget her daughter, of course she
No.
won't, but
Right.
it was a way of actually being able to honour her daughter in an even more special way. So it
Yes.
was it was great that we were able to complete that for her.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's absolutely lovely. I mean, the state of mind that she was in when you first started working with her, and then of course on the other side, right, the state of mind that she had once the book was complete, and she starts to realize and get feedback that, hey, this is impacting our lives. We have children with cerebral palsy, and thank you for writing and sharing your story, as you said. That has to be like a completely 180 transformation,
Yeah.
that as a coach is quite pleasing to see.
Oh, I love it. I love all the success stories that I have. I just love it.
Mhm.
Every time a book is published, I feel like I've birthed my own child with
Oh, of
them.
course. No,
That's
no,
very, very exciting.
that makes perfect sense. I can see why, as a coach, you would feel that way, So it brings me to ask you, have any of your clients shared with you, outwardly, any discoveries that they've learned about themselves as a part of this process? Um, Maybe after the fact, once they've completed the book and the book's in hand, what kind of discoveries have your clients shared with you, that they have learned about themselves throughout the process?
Well, a few things. They've, of course, learnt the fact that they are good enough to write the book,
Right.
and also the fact that it was a tremendous healing process to go through.
Hmm.
And, you know, and also, being able to have someone to hold their hand along the way
Yes.
was, you know, absolutely amazing to be able to have someone to lean on, because,
Hmm.
when they come up against, parts of it which are a bit difficult, and, they can then talk to someone about it and we can
Right.
work through it together.
Right.
That's really, you know, transformational for them. So,
Right.
and they've come out at the other end a
Hmm.
much better person for the whole, doing the whole process. So,
Hmm.
I do recommend it for anyone that needs to write their story and share, and it is, all along what we've been saying, is not just to heal yourself, but to help others as well. It's
Yes.
very powerful to be able to do that.
No, absolutely. It truly is. I mean, healing yourself through the process, helping other people and sharing your story. Again, exponential, right? If you touch one person or impact one person, then it's going to trickle like a pebble in the lake, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
So, speaking of the, uh, I just had it. Pardon me.
you're right.
But I wanted to know about yes, this is it. My apologies. Can you help us delineate, okay, between healing and therapy? Okay, or is it synonymous? Going through the process, you know, I guess can be therapeutic and it leads to healing, or how do the two elements work in your process in how you work with your clients?
Okay, so the writing is one healing aspect of it. And some people are okay and can, get through it all with just the writing aspect,
Mhm.
where, while they're writing, they're actually, and this is why when I get them to write their story, I get them to do a brain dump. So write everything down,
Yeah.
because that's getting it all out of, from within,
Mhm.
which if it's left in there, it can turn into a disease. So we
Yeah.
need to release it all. Now, it may not completely heal you doing that, and that's why I add into my, coaching program, I have another part which I call the emotional release
Yes.
method, which
Yes.
is where the art part comes in, and I've got a couple of methods, and the reason I have 2 different methods is that they pretty much do the same thing, like, the outcome is the same. They're
Mhm.
both a gentle process, it's just depending on which one you sort of, I suppose, resonate with the best, because one is a blank canvas to start with, and that can trigger a lot of things. So I
Right.
thought, I need to find something else that, if that doesn't work for someone, I can give them something else that's not going to trigger anything. And
Mhm.
that's why I brought in another process called neurographica, which is just a piece of paper, pen, and colored markers.
Mhm.
And it's a lot, not as confronting, I suppose, is probably the best word. But they both help you with unblocking if you have problems with writing, but it also helps you without going back into the trauma. It actually helps you have a, you know, gentle way of going, "Oh my goodness," it just
Mhm.
as you're
Mhm.
doing the process, you get
Mhm.
huge insights into what's going on and what your next steps forward are. So it's very powerful.
I see. That is very powerful. And speaking of which, the timing, I guess, there is no one size fit all predetermined time from, let's say, when someone encounters an event of despair, whether it's grief or loss, to being ready to tell their story and write a book. Have you ever encountered any clients where it just based on your consultation with them, maybe a couple sessions, you just made the determination that hey, it might just be a little too early because there is a process for grief, right?
Mm.
And I'm just saying, in all of humanity, as far as we know, we all have a process of grieving, and of course, we have your process that you work with clients on, in the healing method of telling their story and writing the book. Um, do the two intersect, or do you have to maybe say time out? It might be a bit early, from your experience. Maybe we should wait a little while.
I've never had the experience of anyone not being able to move ahead,
Okay.
but if I did come across that and it was, a bit too painful for them. I mean, I
Mhm.
would probably just recommend we do perhaps just some of the art therapy side of it to start with,
Yes.
help them move past it and then come
Yes.
back to the writing part of it. I
Mhm.
think that to me is what I would most likely do
Mhm.
to yeah, just to help them get, through it enough so that, yeah,
Mhm.
they can actually come back and begin.
Understood, understood. And, with the writing and the artistic or creative side, those 2 avenues in which you work with your clients, um, I find that very fascinating because, as I was reading through some of the work that you do, on your website, what came to my mind was, 2 other elements. Well, not really 2 other elements. The writing part, was one, that's pretty obvious, but I guess there's the emotional side.
Mm.
I'm wondering, is that a third element, or is that part of is that part of just the whole package? I would imagine that the author or the client you're working with would need to learn like a balance between what I call the cerebral side of book writing, like, the process, the mechanics, and so forth. And then, of course, the emotional, wounded, perhaps mental aspect of it, right? And could control one so you can work the other, and vice versa. Is that such a thing, or am I
No,
maybe?
that's exactly what I do, and this is why I created the package that I have and, the program that I have because there is that, the
Yeah.
balance of it because, a lot of people teach just the writing. Here,
Mhm.
let's just write a book and away you go.
Yeah.
But mine, this is why I brought that part into it because, yes, it does involve all your emotions
Hmm.
and everything else. So, and it's very important
Hmm.
because, and especially if you're writing about a story on trauma or
Yes.
anything else along those lines where you have a wounded story, you need to have something to help you move forward with it. So this is
Hmm.
why I brought that side into it because a lot of it is your emotions that come up and we need to deal with them and in a gentle way. The processes I have are
Yes.
very gentle. We don't go back into the trauma at all. We
Yes.
we just do it gently and things come up that, you go, "Oh, wow. Okay. I get
Hmm.
it now." I
Hmm.
understand why I'm feeling this, why I had to feel it, and now I know what I have to do to move forward. So it's yeah, it's amazing. I love doing it.
Yeah, that is amazing. And one operative word you mentioned there, Sue, was, gentle.
Mm,
Um, with your compassion for people, and, just your deep feeling, for empathy.
mm,
I would think that this has to be a delicate process,
mm.
uh, because these people are personally, emotionally invested in this endeavor, right?
Exactly,
Y-
exactly, and it's so
Yeah.
much more than just writing a book.
Yes, yes. They're emotionally invested, and they're committed, right? And
Mm,
so I would think, as a result, there's just as much potential of it becoming a detriment as it is in becoming a benefit and a healing process for them. The difference between the two is the gentle nature and the very, creative and unique methods in which you help them address this. That's what it sounds like to me.
yes, correct, exactly it.
Wow, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I'm gonna sound a bit cliche for a second, because I just want to know what your thought is on this. As a book coach and as an author, um, I um, I know you've heard this many times. I've even said it myself at times, but let's say, for instance, in the world of podcasting, okay, I have a lot of friends who are not in podcasting. I have coworkers who aren't in podcasting, and they're like, "Oh, it's fast. It looks great, looks fun, but I wouldn't know where to begin." I kind of feel like it's the same when it comes to writing a book. A
Mm.
lot of people say, "I don't know where to begin, or where do I even start?" I mean, um, is that just a myth, or is it something that people commonly feel?
Very common, very common. It's one of the most common problems. It's that and I'm not good enough.
I'm
They're
not
the
good enough.
2 main ones, and
Mm,
I actually do have, uh I'll give you a link, and I think I may have already given you a link, but there's a link
mhm.
to a page on my website that helps, like, I've got a thing about limiting beliefs on there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a few other nice free gifts and that on there as well. But
Nice.
yeah, it's look, I think that the first thing you need to think about is, are you passionate enough to write this story
Mhm,
and to, of course, heal and get better from whatever your story is?
mhm.
Like, if the answer to that is yes, then, that's a great starting point to, because if you've got the passion to get that, to do it, then
Yeah.
you'll get it done. It's when, people, and I think it's also having someone to hold your hand, because,
Yes.
having passion is one thing, but then not sort of going, "Well, okay, I've done this, but now what do I do?" Having that
Yes.
person to say, "Well, okay, great. Here's the next step.
Mhm,
Let's do this,"
mhm,
and we
mhm,
we walk through it step by step. So, but
mhm.
yeah, I think the very first thing is knowing that, you'd like to write your story, and that you know, and that that story is going to help other people, then
Yes.
that's where you
Yes.
just start. And then, of course, and on that link that you'll share with the people in the show notes,
Mhm.
there's also a spot there to, sign up and or book a call with me to have a 30-minute free heartstorming session to
Beautiful.
and we can go from there.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And if I may ask, is this a service you provide globally?
Yes, definitely.
Beautiful. Okay. Fantastic. So you heard it there, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, this show is listened to all over the globe. I just wanted to qualify that Sue is offering her service globally. Okay. And we will provide links to that 30 minute session, complimentary, I believe, initial session, on the episode show notes, as well as how the listeners can get to your website, right?
Yes. So the extra special one that I don't know if I've given it to you, but I'll make sure you get it. But it's
Okay.
authoracademy.com.au/gifts. So GIFTS.
Okay. Okay. Um, awesome. Author Academy .au
Dot
slash gifts.
dot
Oh,
com dot
sorry,
au.
.com.au slash gifts.
Yes.
Yes, we will have the correct, proper, full link in the episode show notes for the listeners. We will also mention the free 30-minute complimentary consultation. And we'll also reemphasize that this is a global provided service by none other than Sue Kennedy. Sue, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You've given us some tremendous insight, and I hope the listeners out there who are currently going through any type of despair or struggles or challenges, would feel inspired to write their book. Maybe now's not the right time for them. Maybe sometime down the line, after they've processed through whatever it is that they're dealing with, or maybe now is the right time. But at any rate, like you said, if you touch one person or impact one person, that makes the work all worth it.
It certainly does. Really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. So thanks again, Sue. Much appreciated. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you have a loved one, a neighbor, a colleague, a coworker, or a friend who just doesn't seem to be themselves, maybe they're going through dark days of despair, not quite sure where to go or who to turn to, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know two things. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there is always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.